So, ma'am, we have gone live right now.
Okay.
So, a very good evening to everyone who is watching us live from across the globe, to all the registrants who have registered from the nook and corners of the globe. Good evening to everyone. We welcome you to the webinar organized by International Society for Dermatological Research. Today's topic that we'll be discussing is photodermatitis and hand eczemas, and we have our experts with us, expert panelists. One of our panelists will be joining soon. So we'll start without any delay. We will start the expertise. We'll listen to the expertise of Dr. Chandravati, ma'am. So, ma'am, it's over to you, ma'am. We would want you to start your presentation, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Chandravati, senior consultant, the professor and HOD of CARE Hospital, CARE Institute of Medical Sciences in Hyderabad, India. So today the topic is photodermatosis and hand eczema. First, we'll discuss about photodermatosis. So you all know that a lot of photoreactions happen because why the photoreactions? It is the abnormal skin reaction to the UV radiation. So there are actually these abnormal reactions of the sun, of the skin to the sun is broadly classified. They're broadly classified as idiopathic photodermatosis. Under this, that pleomorphic light eruption, all these things will come. We'll discuss later on. Broad classification is idiopathic photodermatosis. Then photodermatosis due to chemicals or chemicals either by ingested chemicals or topical application of the chemicals. Chemicals or drugs, any such things also can cause. This is the second one. Then third one is there is inherent DNA repair defects. DNA repair defects in the body itself also can cause this photodermatosis. The fourth group of disorders are photoaggravated. Photoaggravated means it is already the disease is there, but whenever you get exposed to the UV light, it is photoaggravated disorders. So this is the broad classification of photodermatosis. The first one is idiopathic, where the cause is not known. The second one is the chemicals, the drugs that can cause. Third one is inherent DNA repair defects. Fourth one is photoaggravated disorders. It is a group of disorders. Okay. So you all know the solar spectrum of light. That is starting from 0 to 1700 wavelength is nanometers. So the first 0 to 10 are shorter wavelength ones, that is cosmic rays, X-rays, all will fall into 0 to 1. Coming from 10 nanometers to 400 is the UV light. So 10 to 200 is vacuum UV, that is called vacuum ultraviolet light. Then next one is UVC. UVC is usually 200 to 290. UVB is 290 to 320. Then comes the UVA. Under UVA again, UVA1 and UVA2. From 320 to 340, it is UVA1. And from 340 to 400, it is UVA2. Then from 400 to 700, it is visible light. And after that, it is infrared infrared, microwave, all those things will come. So important light that we require to discuss about these disorders, photodermatosis, is the ultraviolet rays. These are the most common culprits for this photodermatosis. Okay, so this is the introduction of the photodermatosis. Now coming into the main diseases caused by this UV light. So under that, what are the idiopathic diseases, photodermatosis that we come across? So under this heading, pleomorphic light eruptions, that you all know. This is the most common light eruption that we come across. Usually it is seen in spring and early summer. Then the other one is actinic prurigo, most common in childhood and children. And then third thing is solar urticaria. The urticaria caused because of the sunlight. Then the other ones also hydrovacciniforme. Another one is chronic actinic dermatitis. So these are all the conditions where the cause is not known clearly. So then the second step is, the first one is the pleomorphic light eruptions. This, what is the cause of pleomorphic light eruptions? What is the cause of this? Is usually UVA and UVB. You know that only 5% of UVB reaches the earth. Rest of all, the 95% is UVA and other lights. So UV, most common cause of PMLE, pleomorphic light eruption, is UVA and visible light. So the mixed, either UVB or UVB and UVA, both can also cause this pleomorphic light eruption. And then how do you suspect pleomorphic light eruptions? The name itself is telling you pleomorphic. That means different morphology will be present. Pleomorphic light eruptions. So usually seen in all this solar or photodermatosis are seen in the exposed parts of the skin. That is on the face, then on the hands. They're not covered on the hands, or on the upper back, all the sun exposed areas. And even on the face also, most prominent parts of the face are more commonly involved. That is forehead, the cheeks. These are the most commonly involved ones. Again, back, upper back, because it is open. So that is why. And hands, on the extensor aspects of the hands, or dorsi of the hands. These are all the things usually commonly we come across seeing these things. And how they look like. So it can be like macular lesions, macular hypopigmented or hyperpigmented. They can be of different colors. And also it can be like macules, papules, or plaques, or a lichenoid eruptions. Sometimes it can look like a lichen nitidus type of reactions. Sometimes it can look like lichen planus type of reactions. So different types of morphological picture you can see in pleomorphic light eruptions. These are most common during spring season and also early summer. Then next comes the most common one is the chronic actinic dermatitis. Chronic actinic dermatitis, it is here basically not only the light, there should be some other culprit also to cause this continuous chronic actinic dermatitis. That is a continuous process. Patient will be suffering with this dermatitis for a long period. So normally it starts on the sun exposed areas, can involve even the covered areas also. Here culprit is not only the UV light, but also can be the parthenium or any other photo aggravated topical agents or internal agents. Any of those things also combined together, it can cause chronic actinic dermatitis. Then next comes the solar urticaria. So chronic actinic dermatitis, if it is not taken care of, what happens? The skin becomes thick, it becomes lichenoid, and your skin, the skin lines will be exaggerated. It will be like a rhomboid. So very thick, the skin becomes very thick because of the continuous exposure to the light over a period of time. So, and even the treatment also takes very long time for this chronic actinic dermatitis. Next, coming to the solar urticaria. We discuss about the treatment at the end of this thing. So first I will talk about the clinical features so that you should know what are these things. So solar urticaria. Solar urticaria, again, you know that the very name itself will tell you urticarial lesions as soon as the patient goes into the sun. Usually it comes within 5 to 10 minutes. Within 5 to 10 minutes, of exposure to the light. So this solar urticaria is type 1 IgE mediated urticaria. So it should be taken care of by the antihistamines. Usually the wavelength for the solar urticaria is 300 to 500 nanometers. Just a minute. Then the Hydrova vacciniforme and all these the other conditions are very rare. So I will not be discussing. I will be discussing only the common conditions that we usually come across. That is especially in India. Then next comes is the next group of disorders are because of the drugs and chemicals. So what are they? So under this heading there are two types. One is phototoxic reactions. The other one is photoallergic reactions. So how do you differentiate this? What are the causes? What are the etiological causes for the phototoxic reactions? And what are the etiological causes of photoallergic reactions? So what are the common drugs that cause phototoxic reactions? The most common drugs are NSAIDs, that is analgesics. That usually we use, a very commonly used drug is these NSAIDs. Next is diuretics. Next is psoralins, and then phenothiazines, tetracyclines, and quinolone grip, that is ciprofloxacin, this quinolone group of drugs. These are the most common drugs. They cause phototoxic reactions. I'll tell you later what is the differences between clinically, how do you differentiate phototoxic dermatitis and photoallergic dermatitis. Okay. So coming to the drugs that cause photoallergies. Photoallergic that causes the drugs are again NSAIDs. So NSAIDs can cause both photoallergic and phototoxic drugs. All these, and again quinolones, that is ciprofloxacin type of drugs, sulfonamides, anti-diabetic drugs like sulfonylureas, gresofelvin, phenothiazines, all these can cause. And not only these internal medications, even topical agents, topical applications of sunscreens mainly, benzophenones, these are the ones, and perfumes. All these things also can cause fragrance, sandalwood oils, these are all the ones, they can also cause photoallergic reactions. Then next comes is what is the differences between the phototoxic, I was telling you, how do you differentiate a phototoxic reaction to photoallergic reactions. So to cause phototoxic reaction, you require a high amount of medicine or a high amount of application you require. Whereas to cause photoallergy, you require very little amount of the drug or application. Because this is type 4 type of hypersensitivity reaction, photoallergic, whereas this is not. Then next comes is the phototoxic reaction. It just appears within minutes. That means very fast. Whereas this takes about 24 to 72 hours. Takes very long time because the T cells has to be activated, antigen has to be carried to the lymph node, T cells has to be activated, and then only you get the reaction. So it takes longer time. And what about the distribution? Phototoxic reactions you see only on the sun exposed areas. Whereas you see here photoallergic, it starts on the photo exposed areas and also go into the covered areas. And then next another important thing is the reactions, how they look like. They look like a sunburn. That is more of a vesiculation, more of a blister formation, redness, erythema. Whereas here, allergic reactions, you get more of itching, more of scaling, like that, clots, rashes, it will be more of like that. Whereas here, phototoxic, it is more like a sunburn. So these are about the dermatosis, photodermatosis due to these chemical agents and all those things. Then next comes is the DNA repair defects. DNA repair defects, you know that it usually starts in the childhood. There are all these xeroderma pigmentosum, and then Bloom syndrome, Rothman-Thompson's, and Hartnupp's. These are all the causes for this DNA repair. I will not be discussing in detail about these disorders because just I was mentioning for the sake of classification. Then last one is photo-aggravated. So what are the disorders that can photo-aggravate because of the sunlight? It is all the autoimmune disorders like systemic lupus erythematosus, dermatomyositis, all these conditions they get aggravated when they get exposed to sunlight. Then next is the nutritional disorders. That is a very important thing. It is pellagra. Pellagra is one condition where there is photo-aggravation. And you see all the Callis necklace, all those names given to that is pellagra. Then even atopic dermatitis individuals also get photo-aggravated. So that is one more thing. Then atopic dermatitis, seborrheic dermatitis, acne, rosacea, all these conditions, they can get photo-exacerbated. So these are all the conditions and clinical features usually we come across. Now coming to the confirmation of the clinically, how they look like, all that I have already told you. So next comes is how do you investigate? So it is investigations is mostly on the history taking and clinical features. The last one is, of course, even if you do a biopsy, you see spongiotic dermatosis. Then coming to the how do you patch testing can be done, especially in Parthenium or any other chromium, all these, any other things, photo contact dermatitis. In those things, you can do photo patch tests. This can be done, and we know what is the culprit agent that is causing this photodermatosis. Coming to the treatments. So, what are the treatments? Under the heading of treatments, one is protection. Is the most protection, and prevention is the most important thing. So, how do you protect? How do you protect? How do you protect the? It is protection is one is by physical, by clothing. That is actually my advice. Whenever a patient is having any photodermatosis, my advice is go for protection with clothes. That is the best way. Immaterial, of course, people say that it is the weave should be thick. It is very closely weaved clothes will be better. So wearing full sleeves, and whenever you're going out, should be covering with a hat or an umbrella. All these things are very important, especially for people who have seasonally they get photo-aggravated dermatosis. This is very, very important. Next comes is the next one is clothes. After clothes is the sunscreens. Yes, it is very important. But another important point also you must keep in mind is sunscreen cannot give photo protection throughout the day. It has to be applied once in every 1.5 to 2 hours. That is one thing. And a sufficient amount, that is 2 milligrams per square centimeter. That thickness you must apply. Then only sun protection. Sunscreen will give sun protection. So this is another important point you must keep in mind. So of course, in Asian type of skin, any SPF more than 30 is more than enough. But not on SPF, it is for UVB. For UVA, again, another classification is there, Booth's classification, 1+, 2+, 3+, like that. The different classifications are there. So the protection, it is a broad spectrum sunscreen you should use. You should be able to protect from UVA, UVB, and visible light. So these are important things. Then next is sunscreens. After sunscreen, suppose the patient is not responding. We can give antioxidants, which contains keratin. These are beta carotene we can give. That is one thing. And then vitamin E and vitamin A, all these are vitamin C, all these are also, they are antioxidants. They help in photo production. Then next comes is hydroxychloroquine, is also helps in photo production. Then next is other drugs, other drugs, systemic drugs are also helpful, especially in chronic actinic dermatitis or a severe type of photodermatosis. We should help, especially in chronic acne. We can give azathioprine. It works out very well. Next best is the cyclosporin, and next is you can use mycophenolate mofetil or methotrexate, immunosuppressive drugs. Of course, steroids in the very beginning, but we should wean on the steroids, oral steroids, very fast. So this is very important. Sometimes in thick hyperkeratotic lesions type of things, even acitretin also will help to some extent for this people who have got very thick hyperkeratotic lesions. So in brief, this is about the photodermatosis. Let me see if I've missed anything. Coming to the solar urticaria, you have to use antihistamines along with photoprotection. Coming to the drug-induced things, yes, culprit drug has to be removed. Otherwise, it will be continue to happen. So you have to check which drug is causing, and you should go ahead with this medication. Stop the medication, then automatically the rash will be controlled. So more or less, I think I have completed the photodermatosis. Any questions or anything?
Yes, it was in fact a very knowledgeable and very informative session from your side, ma'am. And even in the comment box, we have received a lot of comments wherein people have mentioned that it is quite an informative session that you have done. So we have received a few questions, ma'am. Because of some technical problems, I guess Sheikh Afrin ma'am couldn't join. So we can just go on with the question answer and we can end this, ma'am. So we have got a little questions, ma'am. So I'll read it out for you. The first one is, it comes from Vidita Dangre. She has asked that, ma'am, if melanin protects from sun, then why is it necessary for tropical area population to use sunscreen?
There is one point here. There is one treatment I forgot to tell you. It is called hardening. Hardening means instead of using sunscreens or clothing and all that, you expose in low doses of UV light. Low dose of UV light, so that the skin gets accustomed to the UV light and they stop getting these rashes. Melanin, yes, it is protective, and actually, that is why people who have got especially skin types 3 to 6, they do not get skin cancers. Skin cancers are very rare because of increased melanin. That is a protection for us. But people, they do not want to get tanned, especially Asians. They do not want to get tanned. They don't want to get any pigmentation on their skin. So, and suppose if you are getting photodermatosis, is a disease. It is a disorder. It is not pigmentation. It is, they get a lot of itching, a lot of burning sensation. It is very uncomfortable to the patient. So compulsory, you have to use some medication, topical corticosteroids for some time like that. Melanin, yes, it is there, but here the problem here is not the melanin. Photodermatosis is because there is aberrant immune disturbance. That is why they get these rashes.
Thank you, ma'am. We have one more question. The question is, for how much time should we expose our skin to sunlight in order to receive the daily dose of vitamin D?
See, actually, about 20 minutes, especially Asians, about 20 to 30 minutes, if you expose the face, hands, legs, if they're exposed, actually you get sufficient amount of vitamin D. But in spite of all these things, many people, they do not want to get tanned, they do not want to get pigmentation. So many of them are, it's almost 99% of patients are vitamin D deficient. More or less, you have to supplement vitamin D because vitamin D is not available from our food. It is only from the sunlight we get it. So most of our work is it is inside, inside we sit and do the work. Hardly we get exposed to sunlight. So most of the times we have to supplement the vitamin D, especially in the corona times. We recommend actually 5,000 international units per day. That much of vitamin D, I don't think we'll get it out of sunlight. But the whatever the theory says is 20 to 30 minutes of sun exposure is enough to get the sufficient daily dose of vitamin D.
So, ma'am, we've got one more question wherein they've asked that can change of water cause allergies to humans? Can change of allergies cause? Can change of water cause allergies, ma'am?
Yes, water can cause allergies, especially wet work. Who work in the water, they have more allergies, definitely. Wetness. Water contains a lot of chemicals. It can contain nickel, cobalt, all those things. All those are allergens. And for a longer hours, if you work in the water, yes, definitely it can cause allergies. Especially that is why it is more common in housewives, people who work in the catering, who work in the hotels or hairdressing salons. That's why the allergy is more, because they use that water and wet work.
So, one more question, ma'am. It is can dermatitis lead to skin cancer?
Yes, rarity it is there, but it is about, you can say, 1 to 3%, especially chronic dermatitis. It is continuous exposure to sunlight, and it is not treated. Hyperkeratotic lesions over a period, there will be change in the keratinocytes, and can it change? It can change into dysplastic type of skin cells, and you can get especially, you know, that seborrheic keratosis, long-standing seborrheic keratosis, and all those lesions can get skin cancer. Yes.
One more question, ma'am. We have a person attending this webinar from Philippines who has asked that what UV type is safe to use in home setting?
What? I didn't follow.
What UV type is safe to use in home setting?
What UV type in at home means? I didn't understand. Yeah, because no, the lights, most of the lights we use are LED lights. Actually, we tell our patients if we get exposed to more number of LED lights, also there's a chance of getting photoreactions. That also we tell. Some people do tell us, especially people who work indoors most of the time. They say, we never go outside. How did we get these rashes, photodermatosis? Then we do tell them that exposure to microwave ovens and even to this LED lights, these LED lights, because many people, software people, they work nighttime under LED lights, a lot of LED lights. So they also can cause, even though the book has not mentioned, they also can cause these type of photodermatosis.
One more question, ma'am. So this is
Especially
the last question that we're having.
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. You can continue, ma'am.
So I was telling you the photodermatosis is common with the wavelength between the UVA, and UVB. These are the two wavelengths that commonly cause the photodermatosis.
So the last question we have, ma'am, is does use of some creams also cause photodermatitis?
Yes. Use of sunscreens can cause photodermatosis, photocontact dermatitis, or photoallergic dermatitis. Some of the creams contain benzophenones. It is not suitable to everyone. Benzophenones can cause contact allergic dermatitis. So you should be very careful. After applying the sunscreen, if there is rashes are increasing, then definitely you have to come back to the dermatologist and then get a patch test done for that, whether it is the sunscreen is giving you the trouble.
Ma'am, thank you so much for like more or less we have covered all the questions, ma'am. So thank you so much for clearing the doubts of the attendees who are watching us from across the globe. It was such an informative and such a knowledgeable session, and I am quite sure that a lot of people must have learned a lot from this webinar. And we have a lot of people who have been thanking us from across the globe that it was such an informative session and such a beautiful session, and they have thanked us for actually organizing this webinar, and a lot of people must have learned as well. So, ma'am, before we end this, I would like to tell all the attendees who are watching us live, I would like to tell them that on the top of the chat box, everyone can see a step to access webinar and membership certificates. So you can follow those steps in order to get your webinar certificate as well as the membership certificate of International Society for Dermatology Research. And all the participants that have registered for this webinar will get an email from our dashboard in which you will be getting the links of the feedback. You'll be getting the feedback link for the webinar. You'll be getting your link to how to download the certificates for the webinar. And if you have any queries regarding how to download your e-certificates, or if you didn't, if you sort of have any questions for the webinar, you can call us on the given number. On the poster we have given number, you can also call us for that. With that, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank you again for such an informative and knowledgeable session, and we would definitely like to conduct more such webinars in the future, so that we can share knowledges and such informative sessions to the people across the globe. So it was a beautiful time, with you in this webinar, and with this we would like to end this webinar, ma'am. And I would like to thank you again before ending this, and I'd like to thank you everyone who has watched us live across the globe. Thank you to everyone, and as I said, everyone will be getting an email in which they'll be getting the links for downloading the certificates. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you everyone for watching us live.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.